prisoner exchange deal has been reached. The UN accuses the Houthis of blocking humanitarian aid operations. Torrential rains and flooding sweep Houthi landmines in Shabwa. Welcome to Yemen Today TV. This is the English news of me, Shafat today. The Yemeni government and the Houthi militia announced that they had reached a prisoner exchange deal. At this stage, it includes the release of more than 880 prisoners and detainees held by both sides. This report has more details.
The two sides in Yemen's conflict on Monday said they had agreed to exchange 880 detainees after the talks in Switzerland, which were facilitated by the United Nations and the International Committee of the Red Cross. The Houthi rebels said they would release 181 detainees, including 15 Saudis and 3 Sudanese, in exchange for 706 prisoners from the government, according to the Houthi leaders. The Undersecretary of the Ministry of Human Rights mentioned that they have now concluded a round of negotiations on the issue of prisoners and abductees in Switzerland, and this deal is a part and a first stage, followed by stages leading to total release on the basis of all-for-all agreement. The deal included the 4 journalists sentenced to death, a number of military and civilian leaders, and dozens of court men, in addition to a number of prisoners of the Arab coalition and the sons of the vice chairman of the Command Council. The UN and ICRC didn't immediately confirm that a deal had been reached. However, there is hope that a deal could facilitate broader efforts to end the conflict, which have been helped by the resumption of ties between Iran and Saudi Arabia this month. UN Special Envoy for Yemen Hans Grunberg told the UN Security Council last week that there were intense diplomatic efforts at different levels to end the fighting. The exchange of around 15,000 conflict-related detainees has been under discussion as a key confidence-building measure under a December 2018 UN-mediated deal known as the Stockholm Agreement. But progress has been slow. A few exchanges, including in 2020 and 2022, have been coordinated by the ICRC, alongside smaller deals directly between the warring parties. The conflict in Yemen has widely been seen as a proxy war between Saudi Arabia and Iran, which had led to the loss of Yemenis' lives and future, including the bitterness of killing and detention throughout 9 years of war.
The government welcomed the results of the agreement between the government delegation and the Houthis, which resulted in the agreement to release more than 800 prisoners. The statement stressed that the government team dealt seriously and with full responsibility with this important humanitarian file to release the largest possible number of prisoners with the aim of reuniting hundreds of families with their families. Dutch company achieving the plan to save safer oil tankers said it's going to begin work to install the new tanker in June. The representative of the company confirmed that they will transfer crude oil from the old tanker and then dismantle the old tank. A UN official accused the Houthi militia of blocking access to the humanitarian aids in the areas under their control. This report has more details.
Assistant Secretary General for Humanitarian Affairs and Deputy Emergency Relief Coordinator Joyce Msuya has warned that interference by Yemen's Houthi militia with aid operations remains rife. In Houthi-controlled areas, Yemeni female aid workers are still unable to travel without male guardians, both within and out of the country. This is causing serious disruptions in the ability of agencies to assist women and girls safely and reliably. She urged the Houthis to lift all such restrictions and to work with the international community to identify an acceptable way forward on this issue.
Yemen remains a staggering emergency. This year, more than 17 million people are counting on aid agencies for assistance and protection. But too often, agencies don't have what they need to help. This is what I want to discuss today. Access and security are still major challenges. Funding is in short supply, and economic problems are pushing even more people into destitution.
In addition, Houthi attempts to interfere with aid operations remains rife. These include efforts to force agencies to select certain contractors for third-party monitoring and assessments. In a briefing to the UN Security Council this week, Msuya said that 2 United Nations staff remain detained in Sana'a following their arrest by the militias in November 2021, and she called for their immediate release. She added that agencies are also concerned about growing vaccine skepticism, particularly in Houthi-held areas, and the role this is playing in rising rates of vaccine-preventable diseases like measles and polio. Given current levels of malnutrition, low rates of vaccine coverage will cause even more children to fall sick or die from measles, polio, and other diseases. She added that many areas in Yemen continue to suffer from insecurity, threatening aid workers and preventing access in some places, especially in Shabwa and Abyan. It's now been more than a year since 5 UN staff were kidnapped in Abyan. According to the UN official, last year, aid agencies assisted nearly 11 million people every month. Doing so is much harder than it should be. It often requires many rounds of discussions, leading to numerous delays.
Masam demining project was able to extract more than 1,000 Houthi mines in the second week of March. The numbers of mines removed since the beginning of March amounted to more than 1,000 mines, while the total number of mines removed since the beginning of the project reached more than 300,000. In Taiz, a child was killed and another from one family was injured as a result of being targeted by the Houthi militia snipers south of the city. The crime is added to the crime committed by the Houthi militia, especially in Taiz, where the Houthi death toll spares no one.
The Houthi sniper shot 2 kids. One of them was shot in the head, the other in the kidney. We tried to reach the hospital to save the injured child, but we were too late, much because we didn't have an ambulance. We call on the government to protect people in this area. Shaqab is the southern gate of Taiz. We are the only victim of the Houthi blockade. We are bleeding. Day by day, there are victims in Shaqab, children and women. We cannot reach our farms. We cannot live our life, and we do not have the least of our needs. There isn't even an ambulance. This message should reach the United Nations and the international organizations. What is the fault of the killed child whose brain was shot?
The torrential rain swept away hundreds of mines and explosive devices planted by the Houthi militia in Harib district in Shabwa. This report has more details.
During the rainy season, demining teams and civilians alike face the issue of mine migration. A migrating landmine is a mine moved by nature from the original position it was laid into, unaided by human intervention. Residents and demining teams found various forms of mines and explosive devices that were washed away by torrential rains into the agricultural lands of Awsaylan and Bayhan districts in Shabwa Governorate.
كذلك كشفت لنا السيول بعض الألغام. The flash floods have revealed the sites of landmines laid by the Houthis in valleys and agricultural regions. Anti-tank and anti-personnel mines are common among the landmines we have observed. There are scores more that have yet to be accounted for, hidden and buried in unidentified locations. In addition, unknown human skeletons and bodies have been swept away by the tides to Wadi Bayhan.
These migrating landmines threaten all life forms, as previously cleared and landmine-free areas now face contamination. The Massam team in Shabwa Governorate called upon all civilians to avoid passing through the torrents at the present time, warning of the danger of tampering with any landmines or strange items, and asserting the importance of immediately reporting them in order to save lives and public safety.
The National Demining Team, in collaboration with Massam, have dismantled a substantial number of unexploded ordnances and landmines from the districts of Usaylan, Bayhan and Harib.
Since the conflict between Yemen's pro-government forces and Houthi militias escalated in 2014, liberated strategic areas have been left littered with Houthi anti-personnel mines and anti-tank mines, along with unexploded remnants of war.
Coming next in the news. Years of conflict have damaged Yemen's education.
رمضان مبارك.
Welcome back. The war in Yemen has had a severe impact on the learning and development of the younger generation. There is a need for a vision and an effective strategy in setting priorities for reforming the educational process in accordance with the country's circumstances. This report has more details.
Yemen is currently going through what can be described as a tragedy, with profound consequences on many aspects of daily life. According to UNICEF estimates, about 2 million children are already out of school, with the number projected to increase to 6 million if the war continues. Even before the war, the situation of education in Yemen was already bleak. For decades, the educational system had been experiencing continuous deterioration. The current war only added an extra burden on this weakened system. That deterioration in educational light of the conflict can be attributed to many causes. Since the beginning of the war in 2014, attacks on school children, teachers and the educational infrastructure have had devastating effects on the country's educational system and affected the accessibility of education to millions of people. The damaged closure and the transformation of schools into military barracks have also limited the accessibility to schools. An estimated 2,916 schools, at least 1 in 4 schools, have been destroyed, partially damaged or used for non-educational purposes as a result of 8 years of conflict in Yemen. The conflict and the ongoing disruption of education have also had a severe impact on the learning and general cognitive and emotional development of the younger generation in Yemen, as well as on the mental health of estimated 10.6 million school-aged children in the country. UNICEF has also warned that further deterioration can have profound consequences on children in the long term.
The International Rescue Committee has called on the United Nations to prioritize the 6 countries most at risk of starvation around the world Yemen was among those countries where the committee said in a statement that the United Nations must prioritize the countries most at risk to stop the wave of hunger in the world. Heavy rain swept a number of neighborhoods in Taiz. In addition, the rains led to a damage of a number of houses and 2 children died as a result of the heavy rains that hit Kauthar neighborhood. The World Health Organization revealed that more than 80% of children infected with measles in Yemen did not receive vaccine. It pointed out that most of the children infected with measles are in the northern regions of the country under the control of the Houthi militia. The organization said Yemen is currently witnessing an outbreak of measles and polio, which imposes an urgent need for children to be vaccinated. Here's a reminder of the main headlines. The government and the Houthis say that a prisoner exchange deal has been reached. The UN accuses the Houthis of blocking humanitarian aid operations. Torrential rains and flooding sweep Houthi-laid mines in Shabwa. This is the end of the news. Thank you for watching.